One Question is brought to you by Turnkey Search, a top industry search firm since 1996. The 3-1 questions to wrap up last week were each quite lengthy. I think they were 15 minutes or longer apiece, and I actually received a couple of emails and texts noting that fact from those of you who listen to this series quite frequently. So I thought it might be useful to grab a couple of the key comments from each of the three guests who touched on the state of college baseball. Obviously, we're headed into the College World Series Best of Three National Championship tonight between Coastal and Arizona. We'll have a couple of more conversations on baseball before we move on, but there are certainly other items around the nation to discuss, so we probably won't go past Wednesday with this little mini-series. So the first is a quote from West Virginia head coach Randy Mazey on how he believes attendance would be positively impacted if the baseball season were pushed into the summer and rivalry games could be played in warmer weather and, in his mind, undoubtedly in front of larger crowds.
I contend that everybody who sits at a Lansing Lugnuts game is either a Wolverine fan or a Spartan fan, and it just doesn't make sense for people that come to a college baseball game on March the 18th on a Wednesday at 3 o'clock when it's 38 degrees outside. I wouldn't go, and I don't know anybody else that would go. So we played our biggest rival, Pitt, in the backyard brawl 2 years ago. That's what we call it, the backyard brawl, in the third week of March. And when the first pitch was thrown, I was coaching third base. When the first pitch was thrown, I counted 18 people in the stand.
ABCA Executive Director Craig Keilitz talked on a handful of topics, including the early scoring trends in Omaha. As you'll recall, the first 8 games or so saw some serious pitching duels, though the scoring has picked up since then, possibly because the pitching staff's getting thinned out. Coastal and Arizona have gotten their offenses going, and it will be interesting to see how strategically the best of three series starting tonight will be played. So here's Craig.
Well, I think our game's in incredibly good shape right now. We're in a good position, and the change of going to the flat seam baseball, this being in our second year, really allows guys to drive the ball, and they're rewarded for really squaring the ball up. The lower scores, that I think that's a good number where you play the game properly, playing good defense, being in good position, not allowing guys to steal or to bunt them over and then hit for a little bit of power. That's right on par with where Major League is their averages are. I like the way the game's being played and what we're doing. And on top of that, I think there's some things with it. Like you said, it's a small sampling size, but this is the best pitchers in the country facing the best hitters. And, the old adage that great pitching beats, great hitting. And just like you see in the World Series, great pitching and lower runs or lower scored games and so forth. So I think the coaches are very pleased with where we are. I think since we went to the flat seam ball and seen, 17 to 20 home runs, it looks like we're on par for that or possibly more for this World Series when we just had 3 home runs in back-to-back years, not last year, but the year before and the year before that. Something needs to change in the flat seam, I think, was introduced at the right time and the right place.
Finally, Wofford head coach Todd touched on how realignment for the Southern Conference and changes to the RPI have impacted the perception of the league.
I don't think the change in landscape of our league has changed us to being a one big league. I think it's the change in the RPI, whereas now you get 1.3 for a road win, 0.7 for a home win. When you go back and you look at when the Southern Conference was getting 2-3 teams in a year because the RPI was different. And it's no coincidence that Bradley, Indiana State, and a lot of these northern teams are now taking at-large bids from Southern Conference, from the Big South, purely because of the RPI. And so to me, the conference is just as challenging, just as dangerous, but we've turned to a one big league because the RPI has shifted.
And that's today's One Question, brought to you by Turnkey Search, a top industry search firm since 1996. One Question is designed to give D1 Ticker subscribers valuable insights on how executive leaders in college athletics think about key issues on their respective campuses, in their departments, or within their leagues and conferences. One Question is brought to you by Turnkey Search, a top industry search firm since 1996.